Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're going to talk about BABScon. So I'm back from BABScon, I've been back for a couple days, had a lovely time, it was a nice trip. San Francisco was in pretty good shape weather-wise most of the time that I was there. I wish I'd packed a little bit warmer as the sun was out, but it was very windy and a little bit chilly as a result of that. The food was really good. I mean, there were a good couple places that had some really good food. We also walked like 2 miles out to this little area, this lovely little area, and we got like comfort food and things like that. Then we went out to like a sushi restaurant. But anyway, though, I figure I'll go with sort of a chronological order of things. It was a horrifying flight out there. I have to admit, there was just really terrible turbulence on takeoff. It was bad enough that like we rose and fell at speeds that you get like the butterflies in your stomach, and I get a lot of anxiousness on planes as it is, so that was really upsetting for me. So I sat there, and the lady next to me, I talked to her about like plane crashes kind of for a while. This was sort of funny. I was like, yeah, you know, I get stressed out, and like when I worry about planes and stuff like that, what I do is I look up statistics on plane crashes. This comforts me somehow. Like I read about them because then I feel like I kind of understand why planes fall out of the sky a little bit better, which is in its own weird way relaxing because you feel like you have a better understanding of what you're experiencing. Heavy turbulence is not really a big deal, actually. That occurs from time to time, but it's still incredibly nerve-wracking for somebody who's nervous about flights anyway. But anyway, though, also there was a lot of terrible delays. There was something weird. I met Capper from Horse News, and when we were in the hotel room, everybody in that room had some kind of weird story about flight delays due to technical problems with the planes. I don't know what was going on, but my plane got delayed because I guess that there was some kind of fuel shortage on the plane that was supposed to be taking us out there, so they diverted it, and then we had to wait for another plane to come in. So I was delayed by like 3 or 4 hours, something like that. And when I arrived, it was kind of funny because not even 15 minutes off the plane, I sat down on a bus next to some guys who were also going out to the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and immediately like they were like talking about fursuits and stuff like that, and I was like, yep, going to a con. So fursuits, apparently they cost like $2,000 for a good fursuit. I did not know this. I wasn't talking to them, I was just sitting behind them while they were speaking loudly on the subject. But what I thought was funny is while the guy was kind of talking about his like his sex habits and stuff like that, he was really careful not to drop the F-bomb. So very courteous about the people around him in the swearing regard, but maybe not so much in the like I don't want to hear about your fursuits kind of regard. So kind of amusing. We got there, and on day 0, let's see, what did I do? We checked in the hotel. I met with Silvermane, one of the con heads, and I actually shared a room with him. Kind of. He wasn't there through some of the night. I mean, like, he usually came in very late because he was out on the floor all day, and then he would go to sleep, and so I didn't speak to him a whole lot. But on the first day, though, we went out and we got some dinner with him, some sandwiches and stuff, and talked about things like he was in the Air Force, and so he told us about when he used to fly. It turns out the Air Force uses these old planes that were supposed to be like disposable planes for the Cold War. Like if there was a nuclear bomb and you had nowhere to land with your plane, you were supposed to just ditch this really cheap plane, like just jump out of it. So they didn't have ground brakes or anything like that. You needed this really long runway to land the things. And so, you know, like there had never been a nuclear holocaust, so they were still using the planes even though they were supposed to be disposable. They were just cheap, falling apart. He says that they wind up, like, because they relied on them, they had so many mechanical troubles that they would have to like fly commercial from time to time instead of flying in the plane that the government wanted them to fly in. And so you get into like, I don't know, the military is so funny. I've known a lot of people in the military, and like, for as much pride as they beat into the guys that go into that, like every story I hear is always just kind of like, yeah, I mean the military is like, you know, like everything that they tell you about the military is kind of like, it's true, but it's also a lie. Like I don't know if it's like a lie, but you could say that it's just a bunch of like, it's just a bunch of people fundamentally when you get down to it. I mean, like you imagine moving an army, like you have an army of 50,000 people. That's like a city. And so the military is trying to like round up 50,000 people, like a whole city's worth of people, and then move them out to somewhere and keep them supplied and give them all this equipment and everything like that. And so it just naturally becomes this ridiculous like there's bureaucracy and like things don't work and stuff is broken and everything. So it's kind of like a mix of there is some of the real stuff that they, you know, that they're gung-ho about, but then there's also just a ton of crap that they deal with. And so it's sort of a weird, it's just a weird mix. Every military story I ever hear is always like a, you know, like, oh yeah, it was just riddled with problems every time I hear a military story. But anyway, though, so we did that, and then we met Capper General and hung out in his hotel room for a while. We were gonna play Cards Against Humanity with them. They had drinks for us and everything. Capper was a really nice guy. It was kind of fun to hang around them for a little while. But Petterup and I got sidetracked. We ran off and we found the video game room, and we played Fighting is Magic for a while. That was kind of neat. They had it on a big arcade system. And they also had it on computer. And there was the guy there, the guy who was running that thing. He was like, oh, watch, guys, watch. I could kick your butts. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. And so, like, I try to play a game against him, and he's just, like, air juggling me. The character never lands, and so I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, wow, man, congratulations. You kept me in the air for that entire battle. I couldn't defend or get out of that or anything. I would say that this is broken and a really not fun mechanic, but you had a good time. So I kept asking him. I was like, how do you do the special move? Hey, how do you do the special moves? How do you do the special moves? How do you do the moves? And he wouldn't tell me. He was like, oh, just play again. And I was like, okay, how do you do the moves? And he's like, oh, watch. And he would just air juggle me again. And so he did that like, I don't know, 2 or 3 times in a row. And I was like, okay, see you later, buddy. So we got up and we did something else. That was day 0. I don't know why that guy didn't want it. Like, it's like if you want people to enjoy your game, you should probably like teach them how to play a little bit instead of just kicking their ass. But like I said, he had a good time, so good for him. Day one though. Day 1, I was invited to 2 panels, and I had no idea what was actually going on with those. This was fun. This is when I went around with the camera and really got to look at people. There was a lot of people lined up to get their badges, but there was a lot of people in cosplay and so forth. I posted some of that on my Tumblr. There was a Space Marine. There was somebody dressed as Pinky in disguise. We had somebody dressed as Conrad, what it was called, and also MLP Tan. And those were kind of fun. Those were actually good outfits. Who else do we have? We had a couple of girls who had made their own gala outfits, and so they look like the characters from the show in their gala outfits. Got a photo of them. What else did we have? We had a couple of pony fursuits. They were a little. It looked like there was one for Rainbow Dash, but it looked like she hadn't been eating. There was also one for Golden Gates. And the one that I saw in Golden Gates, I don't know what was going on because she was in like a wagon and they were like pushing her around in the wagon. I wasn't sure, maybe she'd passed out or something like that because those suits are really hot. I don't know if she was a mascot there for the con or if she was just a random guest, but yes, Golden Gates was there. What else went on? I kind of flitted around from panel to panel. I just sort of sat in for stuff for a little while, then got up and I left and I would go and look at something else. I hung out with Petterup at the booth for quite a while, shook hands with people, signed things, said hello, and gave away some download cards, which was fun. But I was invited to 2 panels, though. The first panel was a voice actor panel, and I really didn't know what exactly was going on with it. They just kind of let me know. They're like, oh yeah, there's a fan voice actor panel, Greg, you should go to it. And I said, oh, okay, I will go to this thing. So I went down there, and I was like the first person to the panel, because I was like, when does this thing end? I'll just hang out and wait for it to end. And when it ended, I walked in, and I was like, I'm here for the panel. And they were like, great, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, just showed up here for the panel. And they were like, okay, just sit down over there, and the other guests will come in, and that'll be great. And so the people who came in was, we had Rena Chan, she sat directly next to me. There was a third guy, I don't recall who he was. He'd done some fan work, but he did like other stuff. He wasn't really exclusively involved in the fandom. I mean, neither was Rena Chan, really. Rena Chan's been in like everything. Rena Chan is a plague upon the internet, according to some. She's been in like so much stuff. She's all over the place. And then Jenny from Friendship is Witchcraft came in, and some people joked, they're like, I see in the panel that she sat, like, you guys sat as far away from each other as possible and made no eye contact. And yes, that was true. We did not have any discussions between us or anything like that. Cooties. We had a buffer. It wasn't intentional. It's just that she showed up last, I think, and everyone else had already sat down, and it was just that I had sat at the far end of the table. So the other guys had come in and they'd sat kind of next to me, and then and then, you know, it was just Jenny had the only chair left available. So that was, I wasn't expecting, I had no idea what that was going to be about, and what it turned out it was is that a lot of people showed up, and it looked like they were kind of interested in getting into this sort of self-publishing, like, voice acting stuff. Like, how do you voice act things on the internet, on YouTube, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of a weird thing to do a panel for, because I try to be really careful about providing advice with this kind of stuff, because there is a fair amount of luck involved in it. I mean, like, we got big because we got started making fun of My Little Pony back when it was first getting big, and back when, you know, Sithisto was willing to kind of post anything on Equestria Daily. And so we sort of grew up with the fandom a little bit. So, you know, there's a strong element of luck there with us. And I tried to be realistic and practical with my answers. If I'd been expecting that, I don't know if I would have gone along with it. I wasn't sure what people were going to ask or what it was that we were going to do. I wasn't sure if there was going to be like a guide who was going to be like, you know, doing a Q&A sort of thing. But it really was just that people raised their hands and we answered their questions, and they asked us various things, you know, about stuff. The guy that was there liked Microsoft Excel, and so I talked to him about Visual Basic and Visual Basic for a little while. Gave some advice. I remember somebody was like, agents, like, should I get agents? And I was like, what I know about agents, if it involves a contract, make sure you consult with a lawyer, as contracts are diabolical like that sometimes. Stuff like that. And that was kind of, you know, like I said, I didn't really know what was going on. I just showed up and I was there, and it was fun. It was cool. Yeah, then that was, you know, it was over. I said, so I, you know, had a post-panel thing and said hello to a couple people, and then later on that night we had the bad fanfic reading panel, and that was actually quite a lot of fun. What happened with that one is I showed up, and me and like 2 other people had been invited to this panel. Like, we'd gotten emails or Tumblr requests or whatever, and so we just showed up, and instead of like we got there and we were the first 3 there. So they kept asking us, they're like, what does your panel need? Like, what's going on now? Like, what do we need to set up? And we were all just kind of looking at each other, and we were like, you know, we don't know. We're just like guests for this thing. We're not running it. I have no idea. So the people who were actually running the panel, I think they showed up like just on time, or I don't know if they were a little bit late. I really wasn't looking at my clock, but they showed up, and like we were just kind of sitting around. We're like, hello, we are people you invited. What are we doing at this panel? And they're like, oh, what we do is we do a fanfic reading where we have everybody line up, and anyone who wants to read this fanfic gets a chance to read the fanfic. So people piled in, you know, the room filled up, and then people lined up to read from this fanfic. And I guess what they were hoping was that at the end they might get me or somebody else. And I think that the guy in that one, in this fanfic reading, might have also done some voices, because he was doing voices when he was on the mic. But we were judges, aside from that, as we were supposed to listen to everybody's readings, and then at the end we would give a judgment. But at the end they were like, oh, one of you guys needs to go and do this thing. Like, which one of you wants to do it? And the girl raised her hand, and she was like, I think the guy's girlfriend. I can't remember what they were part of. I don't mean to like refer to them as like girlfriend and guy and girl. I don't know. I just can't remember who they are. But anyway, so the girl raises her hand and she's like, I'll do it. And I think that she was one who, she maybe doesn't do voices. So it was sort of funny when they were like, yeah, let's get one of our special guests to read it. And we all kind of looked around and were like, oh yeah, which one of us wants to do that? It was like, oh, I'll do it. And so she just went and she read in her normal voice. But I voted the guy who, it was a funny fic about, it was Anon in Equestria, basically. It was like this guy who writes about how terrible his life is, and then he dies in a car crash, and he goes to Equestria, where he meets Rainbow Dash, and apparently as the fic progresses, Rainbow Dash falls in love with him, and then Applejack falls in love with him, and then Dash and Applejack battle for Anon's heart in general. They just want Anon to love him. And so it was full of just really bizarre, like, descriptions. Like, there's one point where Anon climbs up into a tree, and then he, like, tells Dash, like, I'll come down, but you have to promise not to be scared and not to run away. And so Rainbow Dash is like, oh, okay. And so he, like, climbs down, and as he describes it, he maintains constant eye contact as he's climbing down from the tree. So we had a guy who read the voice of Anon, in, like, the voice of the Lich King. So he just sounded, like, incredibly evil and, like, very sinister, and he was like, you have to promise not to run away. And then Dash was William Shatner. So William Shatner was like, okay, I won't run away. So I voted him the winner, and we got 2 votes for that guy, 1 vote for somebody else. But our winner was the Lich King. that one was fun. But again, also I had no idea what was going on with that one. Just showed up to the panel and kind of sat in for the whole thing. So it was a good time. What else did I do that day? I sat around at the table and met people. That was fun. Day 1. On day 2 is when our actual panel was. Oh, that's right. While I was down there, we're not supposed to have alcohol around the place. I mean, there are like kids that are present, and there's a kids room, there's kid stuff to do, and everything is supposed to be PG-13 and so on and so forth. But there were a couple people running around with like screwdrivers or like alcohol and Gatorade bottles, things like that, stuff that you couldn't tell it was alcohol. And so I remember somebody came down, somebody I had met previously. I think it might have been. I think it might have been Wolf. I'm pretty sure it was Wolf who did this. But he came down with some orange juice, some Sunny D, and he's like, "Hey, Greg, do you want some Sunny D?" And I was like, I don't know, Sunny D. I'm not real big on Sunny D. And he's like, "Oh, just try it. Maybe you'll like it." And so I had it, and I was like, "This is vodka." he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, No, it's Sunny D. It's Sunny D. And so on that first day, I was just kind of sitting around, like, drinking a screwdriver for most of that panel. I didn't get, like, drunk, but I was just like, this is vodka. I slowly nursed the bottle of, I slowly nursed the screwdriver throughout most of the day. So on day 2, I didn't have any alcohol. On day 2, I had caffeine pills instead. So on day 1, I was just slightly buzzed from vodka, and then on day 2, I was like hopped up on caffeine tablets, because I do that to myself. Yeah, and so on day 2, I kind of hung around, we sold prints, and I gave away download cards, until eventually we had our panel, and the panel is online. I was a little bit nervous about the whole thing, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. We had a lot of questions, we got some laughs, I got to see kind of audience reaction to things. I was a little surprised. I felt like Party of One didn't get as many laughs as some of the other ones did, but I don't know. It's up there on the internet now. Somebody's got a camera above it. You can go and find that if you want to see the Party of One episode. Episode 23, I think it is what they've got it labeled as. That's probably accurate. I had it listed as like episode 24 in my folder or something like that, but it might have been episode 22. Maybe it was episode 23. I'm not sure. It's mislabeled, and I didn't really double check to see what episode it was. But it's the Party of One episode, the one with the stop frames and everything before I got hit with Content ID. Yeah, so it was a fun time. I met a bunch of people afterward and signed stuff, and I took a bunch of selfies with people and pictures and hugged folks and everything. And that was really nice. It was really kind of uplifting emotionally to meet a bunch of people who were like, "Hey, I love your work, keep at it." It was fun. It was great to come out and see you. And it's encouraging to do more cons. Midwest Brony Fest is like next month. I always forget this one. This one's funny because I could actually just drive to Midwest Brony Fest. And I mean, I wouldn't have to stay in a hotel or anything. I could just drive home afterward. It's actually kind of like in my backyard. So Midwest Brony Fest, I should probably like shoot them an email. It's next month, so it might be too soon, but maybe I should just be like, "Hey guys, do you have any open stuff?" And then just drive out. But aside from that, though, I mean, we've been invited to a couple other cons because we went to Babs and everything. But it's expensive. That's the main trouble. Is that unlike PetterUp, I'm still not good of an artist. I'm still not a good enough artist that I can really sell prints or anything like that. I mean, I could try, but I'm very much still on the level of amateur. I don't know if I could get away with anything. I would have to spend a great deal of time on a print if I were to try to make one. Because it would still probably come out sort of ugly. But yeah, I don't have anything to sell, so I don't really have a way to make back any of the expenses. If I did, I would do the con circuit a lot more often, so who knows, maybe if I continue to progress as an artist and get a little bit better, I might start doing more conventions. But we'll see. I don't know, this one was fun. Of course, the hotel room was also comped for us, so that was really crucial. The flight by itself was expensive enough. We don't make a whole lot of money with the videos and stuff that we do. I mean, I make enough to get by these days, but not enough to be traveling too frequently. Especially not if I want to see Kenza like once every 4 to 5 months. I mean, like traveling internationally is really tough on the pocketbook, so I've got to be really careful with my budget. Anyway, so that was day 2, from what I can recall. I went and I saw the voice actor panel, and that was a good deal of fun. They told a lot of jokes and anecdotes about stuff that they did, about things they've done. Brian Drummond was there. He made the over 9,000 joke. Old meme is old. Old meme is old. But I suppose that when you're the guy behind it, it's kind of funny. The convention's like, everybody's a real big fan, so you go out there and you do the over 9,000 joke, and it still gets cheers, even though it's it's like been heard so many times, driven so into the dirt. Just like, he said it in person. So yeah. Tara Strong was there. On day 3, they had the VIP party. I recall. And somebody was like, hey, Greg and Petarep, you guys should go to the VIP party. And we were like, oh, are we invited to that thing? And they were like, yeah, I mean, you guys are special guests, right? Aren't you supposed to go and, mingle and we were like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's for, the actual show people, isn't it? The people working with the show? And they were like, no, I'm pretty sure it's for you guys, too. And this was something, they weren't involved in the con, I think. I can't remember who this was who recommended that we did this. And they were like, yeah, you should go. So Petarep, by that time, Petarep actually knows a lot of people that kind of go to these cons. And so Petarep had, more badges than he was supposed to. He had, a press badge, for example, and he was using that. He actually used it responsibly. This is the funny thing, was that Petarep got probably an abusive level of clearance to go places. And instead of abusing, he didn't abuse it at all. He just used it to occasionally find people and talk to them about plans. I mean, he used it exactly as you were supposed to use the badges for. It was a completely responsible. He got power he wasn't supposed to have, and then used it in the fashion that power is exactly meant to be used. So, kind of amusing, but he was running around with, more badges than he was supposed to. And so we went to the special guest thing, or to the VIP meet and greet, and so we went to the door, and they were like, oh, let me see your badges. And then they told us, they were like, oh, no, this is for the Diamond guys only. Special guests, panelists and special guests aren't supposed to be here. This is just for the people who paid, extra to meet with the show voice actors and things like that. Tara Strong, Brian Drummond, the other, some of the other guys. They seem like fun people. It might have been kind of neat to hang out with them. But on the other hand, I don't know what I would have said to any of them. I probably would have just hovered around and, been drinking. If they had booze. I don't think they had any booze. I don't know what I would have done if I went in there. But they told us to go away. Petarep went in. Petarep just walked in, and he just kind of, flashed one of his badges, and they were like, oh, okay. It was one of those things, I think he even had a folder or something in his hand, because he had his prints in it. So he looked really official. He just walked up there with a folder in his hand, walked almost right past the guy, and the guy was just like, okay. Because this is one of these things about humans, is that Terry Pratchett used to joke, if you walk somewhere with a slip of paper in your hand, you have a purpose, no one will stop you or ask any questions. So Petarep just walks into that room like he owns the place, and nobody stops him. But I'm very polite, so when I pulled up to the door, they were like, oh, can I see? And so I showed them the badge, and they were like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be in. And so Petarep came back, and he was like, oh, well, he's with me. And they're like, oh, well, you don't have a legitimate badge either. So they kicked us out, and they were like, oh, you have to go. So yeah, so we didn't get to meet Tara Strong or anything. We probably could have if we really wanted to go out of our way, but like I said, I don't think either of us would have known what to say to him if we had the chance. We would have just kind of hovered around and been like, so, I don't know you. My name is Greg. Hello. I have hobbies. Do you have hobbies? What kind of hobbies do you have? I suppose. I mean, if one of them played Warhammer. If one of them had Warhammer, if one of them played Warhammer or Supreme Commander, I could have kicked it off. But I kind of doubt it. Maybe some of the guys. I don't know. Could find out. That'd be kind of fun. It'd be neat, to have Brian Drummond in a Supreme Commander group or something like that, and just be like, yeah, Brian Drummond plays Supreme Commander. We play with him now. I kind of doubt it, but would be cool. We do after that. We were going to go out and see San Francisco on that day, actually, but it was a little bit rainy. The weather was kind of poor, so instead we went down there, and I grabbed my sketchbook. And this is actually kind of funny. My sketchbook is full of nudie pictures, and they're getting better as I go along, but the first couple of pages are all really ugly nude sketches of people, and then it goes along. So I brought my sketchbook, and then turned past all the nude sketches, and then just kind of sat out there and just sketched stuff. Me and Petarep brought out some paper, and he was doing the same thing. So we were just kind of down there sketching stuff, and we had people come up, and they were like, oh, are you taking sketch commissions? And we were like, yeah, sure, what do you want? And they were like, oh, this thing, how much do you want for it? And we were like, I don't know, it's a funny request. We'll just do it. Like, we were like not asking for money. We were just like, so we had somebody ask for like Scootaloo as a magical girl. And so Petter Up drew her as like Sailor Moon, and I drew her as Humura from Madoka Magica hitting on Apple Bloom, and so we gave that person that, and so somebody else asked for a couple things. We also took requests on MLP. Like I have a quick sketch of somebody asked for it was actually Rhino, one of our fans was like, hey, can you guys draw Twilight Sparkle in an American hat talking to that new whatever that new character is, the equalist cult leader one. Like, can you draw her in like a communist, like a Russian communist hat? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I drew a sketch of that and threw that on MLP. Petter Up put together a collection of stuff and then also threw that on MLP. And so we brought those down and we just kind of like showed them to people. One of the requests was for Petter Up to draw Rainbow Dash trading her legs to Pinky, and then being really happy with the purchase because she doesn't need legs, she has wings. So he's got this really adorable picture of her. I think he sold it. I can't remember what somebody bought it for. It was like one of those things. It was like, oh, how much do you want for it? And Petter Up was just like, I don't know, I just kind of drew it last night. That was kind of our relaxation day. We were just kind of having a good time. So we drew a couple of sketches. I drew like oh yeah, somebody asked us to draw Thrackerzod in actual demon form, and so Petter Up drew her as like kind of this scary looking centipede monster, and I made her like this multi-eyed tentacle thing with like raptor legs and stuff like that. And Sweetie Belle has many forms. It depends on the level of your dreaming or whatever, I suppose. We never really sat down and made concepts of actual demonic Sweetie, so we were just like, I don't know, off the top of my head, here might be something that would be good. That would be the kind of thing you draw a bunch of different sketches and then go with the one that you think would look best. But we did that for somebody, and people just paid us random amounts for the sketches because they were like, are you wanting payment? And we were like, no, I don't know. And but everybody was kind of, you get in that mindset when you ask for commissions at a con. Like everybody's like, oh well, I have to pay something. This is a convention, I got to pay something. So they just asked us fun requests, and we would just start doing it. And they'd be like, how much? And we'd be like, how much do you feel is fair? Somebody gave us $4, somebody else gave us like 20. So it just kind of like, it varied, $4, $20. That was fun. That was good practice for me too. I also sat down and like tried to draw a fat guy, and then Petter Up gave me advice on my fat guy drawing skills. So I gotta work on my fat guys. I drew him without a chin. Fat ugly guy, I think was the exact description. So I drew like a chinless fat ugly guy. He looks kind of like a redneck hick. Anyway, though, and then on day 4, I am told that, that's right, what was it on night 2? I think it was on the second night that they had all the parties. People had told me, actually, a lot of people told me that Sathisto is actually a pretty laid-back, like, likable guy, if you meet him. And I guess Sathisto was at the MLP party. There was an MLP party. And this is actually kind of funny. Apparently, most of the parties that night got shut down, except for the MLP party, because it was tame. I mean, there was a guy standing at the door, and the door was closed, and they were, checking wristbands and things like that. The guy was wearing a security outfit. And I cannot, for the life of me, figure out whether or not he was really security, or whether he was just a guy dressed as security, acting the part. I wasn't sure, but he was acting the part, so I just kind of, treated him like he was, an actual security guy. Because at the very least, I think that's probably what they were going for. If he wasn't real security, then they wanted you to think he was. Because he wasn't like hotel security. He might have been maybe a hired security guy or something like that. But anyway, though, he was just keeping an eye on people. And so I guess the MLP party just wound up being tame enough or sensible enough that it didn't get closed down, whereas all the others a bunch of the others got shut down. But they had a stripper come in. I hear Sathisto got some action. They had a couple stories from that. I guess they were taking shots out of a horse dildo and so on and so forth. What else did they do? We actually didn't stay for that. Petter Up confessed to me that he's sort of an angry drunk, and so he didn't want to stay around and get drunk because as he drinks, he just gets more and more irritable. I, on the other hand, get more and more happy and more friendly the drunker I get. So I get in this weird. I'm one of these weird guys that will once I start drinking, I tell people compliments. I'd be like, "That is a really lovely shirt. You wear a really lovely shirt." And they'd be like, "Thanks, Greg." Thanks. So this is me when I'm drunk. But I didn't stick around and get drunk for the MLP party, which is fair enough. I warned Kenza, I sat down and they're telling me there might be a stripper at the MLP party, but I'll come back before that occurs. And so she was like, oh, it's okay, just have fun, just call me when you're back. And that's kind of one of those couple things that's sort of funny. It's like, you're not really on a leash, but I will know if you come back at the time. If you come back too late, I will know what you're doing. But I let her know. There's a lot of trust with the long distance relationship stuff. I always feel like it's good to build trust and maintain trust. And so I was like, yeah. So on the internet, they'll probably be talking about the stripper, and we're gonna go poke into that party. But I'm not gonna stick around for a stripper or anything like that. So like I said, she was like, oh, okay, it's okay, you can go have fun. Just let me know when you get back. And so we weren't out for very long. I came back and I let her know when we were back. And so so that way, whatever. I would not have been wouldn't have stayed for that stuff anyway. But I might have stayed like for another hour or something like that if I'd been having a few drinks. They were just giving them away for free. That was actually kind of funny though. We were looking for the MLP party and we accidentally walked into the furry party. There was a furry party that was just like a furry group that was there. And we didn't realize it was the furry room. We just kind of like walked in and we were like, hey, what's going on in here? Oh, drinks? And they had like rum. And I was like, what kind of rum is it? It's not Spice Jack, is it? Or Calico Jack, I think is what it's called. So they showed me the rum and it was like some kind of rum that I would trust. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, give me one of these, Pone Killer. Pone Killer sounds good. It was like pineapple juice with cinnamon in it. It was really good. But anyway, though, I was sitting around drinking like in this room, and then like a guy in a cow suit was like suddenly behind me, and I was like, oh gosh, a cow suit, surprised me there. And we were like, I don't think this is the right room. I think we were looking at the stuff on the wall, and we were like, oh yeah, this is the furry party. We're looking for the MLP party. So I grabbed somebody. I was like, do you know where the MLP party is? And they were like, oh, it's down that way. And I was like, oh, okay, see you later. So it was a closed door, which is one of the things that made it a little bit harder to find. Like I said, there was a security guy standing out front, but you would not expect that from an MLP party. So we went down there, we popped into the MLP party for a little while, and I was about to go order another drink, but like I said, Peter didn't want to drink. So we left, and we went and we found some other people. I was told by Wolf, we met up with Wolf, and he said that that night there were some issues where one of the con staffers had been disruptive or something like that with the sound test, with the sound check. And so Omni, who had showed up, Omni, one of the musicians, didn't get to play a set that night. Which was really unfortunate. There was delays because of some kind of technical problem, and they were really frazzled over it. But the following morning, though, when they did the closing ceremonies, apparently they let Omni go ahead and play his set during the closing ceremonies to make it up for him, because he got cut off, which was too bad. But yes, I didn't see the closing ceremonies. I also didn't see the opening ceremonies, and I missed the premiere. The big premiere of the first episode, and that was because Peterup and I kind of like, we woke up late. I mean, we were like, oh, we should really go down there. I mean, like, maybe people are gonna ask us what we thought of the new episode, and we'll have not seen it. So like, we were like, all right, well, we'll wake up when we wake up. He's like, I'm tired. We'll wake up when we wake up, and we woke up in time to get down there. But the trouble was, we didn't wake up before everybody else. So there was already a line, like, lined up around the door, and I was like, oh man, I'm not getting in that line. That's too big of a line. And it turns out that it absolutely was too big of a line. There were about like between 2,000 and 2,500 people, something like that, from what I've heard. A couple of accounts vary. But there was quite a number of people at the con, and I guess that room only seated about like, I don't know how many people, but it wasn't the whole con's worth of people, and the whole con was pretty much there to see the premiere. So it wound up being like there were people standing on the walls and stuff like that, and it was nearing the point of fire hazard, so we couldn't get in. So Peterup and I we got breakfast, and then we waited till like the late afternoon, and then we went and we didn't pirate anything. We would never do that. That's just completely undreamable. But we managed to see the episode through miraculous. We were able to divine what the episode was without any kind of assistance whatsoever. So we did catch the episode later that same day, but you know. Yeah, it was a good episode. It was kind of interesting. A lot of people remarked they were a little shocked that they would tackle an issue like that in a kids show. It's sort of a Harrison Bergeron thing. Some people said it was like a communist deal, but they really didn't have a communist society set up because there was no industry for the state to control. It was really just kind of like a Harrison Bergeron equalist society. And if you're not familiar with Harrison Bergeron, it's like a sci-fi story where instead of trying to lift everyone up to the same height, what it does is it forces everybody down to the lowest common denominator, and it kind of makes society just, it's equal but dystopian. And so Harrison Bergeron is probably it's closer to what the whole thing was. But it was a good episode. It was fun. Had a good time watching it. I had to appreciate, now that I'm starting to learn Flash and I'm getting more into art, I really have to appreciate some of the stuff that they do with the show now. Like as I'm watching them when they animate their characters and the different facial expressions, I try to watch and see where they do their keyframes a little bit. And you know, they've been going for a while, so they've got a lot of assets built up. But I'm, you know, I have a much more appreciation for kind of their animation work and stuff now, knowing the trouble that Flash puts you through to even do some of that stuff. All the workarounds that they must go through, and all the hours spent on, you know, tweaking all those little details and building the puppets and everything else like that. It's pretty neat. So slightly different viewpoint for me this time around. What else happened on the fourth day? The fourth day is when we finally went. I heard that there was a party actually where the show staff, the people who work on the MLP show, had a post-con party, and apparently people who were still around were invited to it. But I was out of there by then. I was in like downtown San Francisco. We checked out the Golden Gate Bridge. We looked at Alcatraz. Apparently you have to like get an appointment for Alcatraz months out in advance. There was no way we could have gotten in there, or maybe like a month. Whatever, you have to do it. You have to schedule it. So there was no way that we could get out there. But we got pictures of it, and we looked around. We went down to Chinatown and got some dinner. And it was around then that I had to head home. But yeah, but most of my once we got out of that place, I think on the third day is when I went and I got sushi with all the MLP artists, with all the musicians that showed up for the con, and that was fun. The sushi was really good. I mean, like the food in San Francisco was was really good. If you ever go down there just for like a trip, there's a lot of good places to eat in San Francisco. Expensive places, but really good food. What did I do? I got in the plane. It was a quiet plane ride, no turbulence, thankfully. Played Civ 4 on my laptop the way back. Read a bit more Lovecraft, had my complete works of Lovecraft. It's a gigantic book. I've taken that on like multiple plane trips now, still haven't finished it. Yeah, it was a good con. It was a good time. I know I missed out some details. There were things that I wanted to talk about. For example, there were some kids that sat in at our panel, and I remember thinking about that, like when I was reviewing everything to make sure that all our stuff was in good shape before we went down to the panel. I was watching our episodes and I was like, oh, there's gotta be some kids. Oh man, I swear a lot. I'm like it's like PG-13 swearing, but for the idea of like, oh, there's gonna be like kind of a younger audience. Man, I swear, I'm a bad influence. In retrospect, I feel like when the kids came in, maybe I should have contextualized a little bit and explained like some details of like maybe done like a brief explanation about connotation and juxtaposition. And you know, that might have been an insightful analysis for other people too, why we do some of the stuff that we do in our parodies. Speaking of, also during the voice actor panel, I was a little bit amused because I've seen this debate on 4chan where they're like Friendship is Witchcraft versus Mentally Advanced in terms of characterization, where they're like, how do you guys come up with your characters? And so I talked about, you know, where we started and kind of how we developed, and then Jenny was like, well, mostly we just kind of make them say things, and then we kind of have to remember the things that we said, and that's how we develop our characters. And I was thinking that that's kind of it's such a delightfully ill-advised way to write characters, because I was thinking about when J.K. Rowling, I remember an interview that she did once, or it was like a convention or some kind of sitting, where somebody got up and Dumbledore's brother in the later books became like an important character. He met with Harry and he helped him out along the way, and he was like this respectable guy. Well, in one of the previous books, without even thinking, J.K. Rowling had made a joke about Dumbledore's brother, where he'd been arrested for like lewd acts with a goat, or something like that, and she forgot that she'd said that. It was just sort of something, it was just like, I just said a dumb thing for a passing joke. I really wasn't thinking about characterization at the time. So later on, she uses Dumbledore's brother as like this serious, important character, and one of the fans remembered like the lewd acts with the goat thing, and so they got up and they were like, hey, Dumbledore's brother seemed like a normal, well-adjusted guy. What was that thing about the goat? And so J.K. Rowling, she's like, oh my god. Did I write that? Did I seriously write that? And they were like, yeah, in the whatever book you wrote that he was arrested for lewd acts with a goat. So, Yeah, you have to be careful with the I just say random crap about my characters and then try to remember it. Because if you have like a character who starts off obscure and then you try to bring them back later and you forget that you said something really ridiculous early on, it can bite you in the butt. Of course, that was a span of over like 7 books. You can't like it's just sort of a funny little background thing. Not as many fans will remember that Dumbledore's brother was arrested for loot acts with a goat. But what I think what'll get people is if you watch the movies first and then you go back and you read all the books, you'll remember the brother because he was important. And when you get to the book that talks about how he was arrested for loot acts with a goat, it'll stick with you because you know he's coming later. And you're just like, oh, okay, read this book. Loot acts with a goat. Okay. I didn't know that. So, kind of an amusing way, like, ill-advised way to write characters, but for the fact I don't think that they're really going with any major continuity, so it doesn't really matter. But I thought that was just kind of funny to hear her confess that was just what we do. We just kind of like say things and then we build on it from there. That's like, we said a random thing. We said a random thing. It's canon now. So, yes. Oh, what else happened? Anything else that I can think of that was interesting about the convention? I don't know though. It was a fun time. Like I said, I got some video footage of it, and had a good time. Would not mind doing another convention, especially if I can think of a way to make back a little bit of the expense of going out there. Places that are closer might be a good idea. PetterUp suggested that maybe I should come out to one of the things that's going on. There's like something going on in Austin or something like that. That might be a little bit closer to where I am. It would cost me less money. But it's all about the budget, really. That's the big thing. But anyway, though, I guess that'll be it for today, so I will catch you guys later. We're good now.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. We've taken over the horse news table, and we're going to start selling prints at it. We'll see how long we can do this without, getting in trouble.
Yes, renegade horse sales.